We will be joined by our partner organizations and led by the North Carolina NAACP. Those partner groups are the North Carolina AFL-CIO, our Walmart, the Carolina Workers Organizing Committee, the fast food workers, as well as Democracy North Carolina and the Institute for Public Policy. And then along with that, this is all part of the Forward Together moral movement. Now we have Reverend Barber who will come up and speak a little bit more about what we're asking of Budget Director Art Pope.
Thank you so much. Joined by two of our presidents here, Reverend Dr. Portia Rochelle, my good friend Charles, who's here with the Wendell Wake branch of the NAACP. At the deepest level, the great values of our democracy that are rooted in our Constitution place the greatest importance upon how we use our power, our influence, and our wealth in the cause of establishing justice, providing for the common good, and in the general welfare of all people. That's how we should use our power, our wealth, and our influence. To establish justice, provide for the common good, the general welfare of all people, and to promote freedom. Men of great influence and wealth, when they set a new goal for North Carolina, they penned in our state constitution that the goal of government and policy ought to be life, liberty, the enjoyment of the fruit of one's own labor, the pursuit of happiness, and that working for the good of the whole should be our vision, should be how we use our power, our wealth, and our influence. And it is not mere happenstance that the motto of our state is to be a place where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great. Today, we come here with no personal dislike for Art Pope or those who he influences, Governor McCoy, Speaker Tillis, Senator Leader Berger, and the host of legislators who promote extreme and regressive public policy. We also, in this season of Thanksgiving and Advent and Hanukkah, recognize that all people have personal flaws. But in our greatest moral and faith tradition, the most tragic flaws are when we use our power, our influence, our wealth in ways that undermine help for the poor, the children, the vulnerable, and the cause of equality and justice. The greatest of sins is when we use our personal power to cause public harm. In our Judeo-Christian and my Judeo-Christian tradition, the abusive use of power, the abusive use of influence, and the abusive use of wealth to implement policies that undermine fairness and justice require a moral critique and require a moral outcry. Personal flaws between you, your priest, and your God. But when you use your power to undermine the hopes and the dreams of the vulnerable and to create injustice, the Bible is clear that there must be a moral outcry. That's why the Jewish prophet Amos said in his writing, there are those who hate the one who upholds justice in court and detest the ones who tell the truth. You levy a tax on the poor. You impose an unfair tax on the poor and their grain, while you have built yourself stone mansions. He then goes on to say, while you have planted lush vineyards. He then says, there are those who oppress the innocent and take bribes and deprive the poor of their justice. The great writer in the New Testament, Paul, in the face of Roman political domination and equality, told a young Timothy, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Then he went on to say to Timothy, he said, instruct those who are rich in this world not to be proud, not to trust in their money. Their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Tell them, demand them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, all ready to share with others. And if they do this, then they will be storing up their treasure as a good foundation for the future. Jesus, by the way, was forced in his family into poverty because of the unfair tax policies of the Roman government. But Jesus never had a complete indictment against wealth. But he did warn people, just as the Pope reminded us a few days ago, you can't love God and mammon. And then the Pope said, this is not communism. It is the heart of the gospel. You can't see wealth as an excuse to bypass the poor. And you can't see wealth as an excuse to abuse people and policies of those that are less fortunate than you. And you should not use wealth to create policies that hurt the poor. It is a tragedy when we see trouble on Wall Street as a tragedy. But then when it comes to the lack of education, the lack of health care, the lack of unemployment benefits, we see that as a mere fluctuation that will be corrected by merely trusting in the flawed logic of trickle-down economics, which is nothing more than a cover for greed. Economics is ethics. How we use our money is a moral issue. Wealth can and should be seen as an opportunity to do good. Many wealthy people, from John Hopkins to Madam C.J. Walker to Bill Gates, have used and found ways to use their wealth in the promotion of the good. Now, why did I take this moment here this morning, members of the media? I want us to be clear about why we do what we do. It's not bumper stickers, it's not hyping, it's not just a hype. It is within this moral framework of our Constitution, our deepest values, looking at the example, the peers of wealthy peers who have done so much good with their wealth, that we come today to announce a series of informational pickets led by the NAACP, our other partners, Marcus in North Carolina, AFL-CIO, Southern Studies, and a host of persons that aligned with the Forward Together Moral Movement and the historic Thousands on Jones Street People's Coalition. We are targeting the business and policy activities of our Pope, seeking to challenge the conscience and actions of Mr. Pope and to inform the conscience and citizenry of North Carolina. Now, if he were just a private citizen who just had wealth and chose not to share his personal wealth, that would be between him, his God, his priest, his pastor. And we probably would not be doing pickets. But he's now an employee, an officer of the citizens of North Carolina.
There you go. There you go.
And there is a clear record of his intentional utilization of his money to manipulate the system
Exactly.
and the political process
That's right.
in North Carolina. in ways that can clearly be seen are counter to the principle of the good of the whole and counter to the principle of fairness and justice and equality for all. He has gone from merely being a kingmaker, and now he has entered into the heart of our political apparatus. And he is controlling the most moral part of government, and that is the budget. Because the budget is a moral document. Because the scriptures say where your money is, your treasure is, that's where your heart is. The budget can damage education or lift it up. The budget can damage the poor or lift them up. The budget can help the unemployed or it can hurt them. And so we must be informed, North Carolina must be informed about his policy focus and his influence, because where your treasure is, your heart is. And so this morning, we faxed this letter, and then we're going to have a worker to speak and we'll take questions. Dear Mr. Pope, as the nation celebrates the holiday season, the lives of hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians are hanging in the balance due to the extremist policies of Governor Pat McCrory, Speaker Tom Tillis, and Senate Leader Phil Barber. While this should be a time of goodwill, many North Carolinians are cautiously embracing themselves for the elimination of critical lifelines such as health care and unemployment insurance. As the budget director for North Carolina and one of the architects of the extremist policies and laws adopted this year by the North Carolina General Assembly, you have supported denial of expansion of Medicaid to 500,000 people, cuts in unemployment benefits to 170,000 people, and many other regressive, mean-spirited policies. Most troubling of all, through your web of organization, American for Prosperity and Civitas, you have supported voter suppression legislation that attacks democracy and North Carolinians' most fundamental right. We call on you to show compassion and concern for the well-being and fair treatment of women, people of color, working people, and the poor. We call on you to support the very people who have supported you over the years as customers of your discount retail stores in 65 cities across North Carolina, primarily in working class, poor, and minority communities. The extremist laws and policies that you support disproportionately impact your customers and the communities in which they live. They have been loyal, collectively spending millions of dollars each year in your stores and their communities. Now we call on you to be a good neighbor and show compassion on those whom you supported over the years, who have supported you over the years. We ask you, number one, to call for a reversal of the extremist laws and policies, and support our request for a special redemption session of the North Carolina General Assembly to reverse the laws that will harm the most vulnerable in our state, the poor, low-wage workers, people of color, and women. If in this season of Thanksgiving and goodwill, we invite you to consider the request made on behalf of millions of North Carolinians who find themselves without hope and without help. I look forward to hearing from you by December the 9th. Sincerely yours, Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, President of the North Carolina Conference of Branches of the NAACP, CC to the North Carolina AFL-CIO, Democracy North Carolina, Carolina Workers Organizing Committee, Our Walmart, and Action North Carolina.